Hello Year 3 and welcome to your final week of videos from me for the final week of term before we go off for our summer holidays. And we're doing 2 lessons this week on Venice. Now I believe you may have studied a bit about Venice in Year 1, so you should know a little bit about it. But in this lesson we're going to look at Venice as a tourist city, look at some of its history, and there's a short task to do. And then in the next lesson we're looking at environmental issues around tourism in Venice and some of the issues around what problems the thousands and thousands of visitors to Venice have on the countryside, on the country and on the city. So first thing to do is think about what you learned in Year 1 and pause this video and watch this YouTube video, which is all about Venice. So stop the video now and watch this YouTube video. Now, many of you, welcome back, many of you may have actually been to Venice. I know I've only spent a day in Venice, but I still remember it's an amazing and wonderful city. What an unbelievable place it is. It is actually the capital of northern Italy's Veneto region. It's built on more than 100 small islands in a lagoon in the Adriatic Sea. So if you don't know what a lagoon is, you can look that up in a dictionary, but you all know what an island is. So each of these small islands is linked by over 400 bridges. Amazing. It has no roads. Unlike most cities, you can't drive around Venice. There aren't any roads. You have to walk along the bits that have paths or travel along the canals. So there's waterways connecting things. So there's lots and lots of boats. You may have seen the famous Venice gondolas as a way of getting around. They're like taxis, as a way of people getting around the city. So the Grand Canal and most of the thoroughfares are lined with Renaissance and Gothic palaces, beautiful buildings, beautiful historic buildings, and it makes the city absolutely amazing. Piazza San Marco contains St. Mark's Basilica, which is tiled with Byzantine mosaics, and the Campanile Bell Tower offering beautiful views of the city's red roofs. It is a UNESCO heritage site and it is an amazingly romantic and wonderful city to visit. Now, brief history of Venice. It was built with, well, they think it is, there's not a lot of evidence, around 166 AD by refugees from nearby Roman cities. So people were running away, maybe slaves or what have you, running away from nearby Roman cities, and they set themselves up their own town on these 100 islands, and their main activity was fishing. Obviously they were in the sea off the islands, and that's how they earned their living. And being islands, they were able to protect themselves from the Romans they'd run away from. However, in the 5th century, the whole city was overrun by Visigoths, and then 50 years after that, Attila the Hun and his army overran the city and took it over and killed a lot of the inhabitants and enslaved them and basically destroyed the city. It was built again between the 9th and 12th century. It developed into a city-state, so the city was like its own country, had its own government and ruled. So between those centuries it was a city-state. However, it was devastated by the Black Death in 1348. The Black Death was a plague, a bit like COVID, but it killed almost everyone. It was a really nasty plague. So we have had plagues before like this, and it devastated the whole city. Large numbers of the population died, just like in London, to be fair, and just like in England. In the Middle Ages and in the Renaissance, Venice became a major centre for commerce and trade. It became very, very wealthy. Because of where it was positioned and importing goods from other parts of the world and through into Europe. It was a bit of a gateway into Europe and vice versa. And by the 18th century, it was considered the most elegant and refined city in Europe. It was conquered by Napoleon Bonaparte in 1797, so the French took it over basically. But it eventually became part of the newly created Kingdom of Italy in 1866, and it's been part of Italy ever since, so it's now an Italian city. So watch this video about Venice as well, and then I want you to do a task. Now, the task I want you to do is to think about why people might go to Venice. I've been to Venice and it was absolutely lovely. Venice only has a population of about 60,000, 55, 60,000 people, and yet they average over 60,000 visitors a day. So imagine that. More people visit Venice a day than actually live there. So why are all these people coming to Venice? What I want you to do is either make a post or write a persuasive letter encouraging people to visit Venice. Maybe you can include some of the highlights, some of the reasons why you might visit, some of the things you might see, and what makes it such a good and romantic place to visit. In the next lesson, we're going to look at some of the issues that is actually causing for Venice. But that's the end of this lesson. I hope you enjoy it and look forward to seeing your work on tapestry. Thank you.